There's one takeaway from last night. It was that both the Tories and Labour lost out to an invisible third choice on the ballot, the fed up with Brexit party, which won in droves across the country. Of course, there was no such choice, and instead here in Bath, as across the UK, voters registered their anger with Brexit paralysis by handing victory to the Liberal Democrats. They took 23 seats away from the Tories here, taking control of the council in the home of the arch-Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg.
I'm his local councillor, and I'll call by on him at the weekend and ask if there's anything I can do to help him.
From Amber Valley in the north to leafy Winchester in the south, the Tories took a drubbing. Theresa May put on a brave face at the Tory Welsh conference, where she was met with this by a man who probably spoke for many.
Thank you, everybody. And
why don't you resign? The National Convention want you. We don't want you.
And Bryn Honda.
And good afternoon, she said, moving swiftly on as he was frog-marched out.
I think people were sending a very clear message, a simple message, to both main parties, to us and the Labour Party. Just get on and deliver Brexit. That's our responsibility, it's what I'm working for, and I call on the Labour Party and those of my own colleagues who haven't thus far delivered Brexit, backed Brexit, to do so.
Where the Tories took a pounding from the Liberal Democrats, Walsall was at least a win. The Tories also took North East Lincolnshire. Labour's big saving grace was in Trafford, where Jeremy Corbyn was on hand to celebrate a win from no overall control. Elsewhere, there were tears as the Wirral, along with other Labour strongholds like Bolsover, Burnley and Darlington, succumbed to voter frustration with the party.
I think it means there's a huge impetus on every MP, and they've all got that message, whether they themselves are leave or remain, or the people across the country, that an arrangement has to be made, a deal has to be done, and Parliament has to resolve this issue. I think that is very, very clear, and I think everyone gets that message.
But many in the party are acutely aware they could fare even worse in the upcoming European election. This MP said the party was punished for its confused message on Brexit that pushed supporters away, largely into the arms of independents.
I won't get any plaudits for it within, the Jeremy Corbyn fan club in the Labour Party, but the truth is, looking both ways on Brexit has harmed the Labour Party. The question is, when my colleagues take to the airwaves, are they going to be honest about the extent to which our leader is coming up on the doorstep too? And what is Jeremy Corbyn going to do about it? He should lead or make way for someone else who can.
No doubting whose night it was. The Lib Dems chalked up 17 councils, back on the political radar, at least locally, thanks to Brexit. Here in Chelmsford, one of its biggest wins, it took the council in traditional Tory Essex. Vince Cable, another politician with an eye on the European vote to come.
We expect to do well. We are clearly the dominant, successful Remain party, and we expect everybody to get behind us in that important elections.
The Liberal Democrats' success in taking Chelmsford from the Tories is a sharp illustration of the Conservatives' southern discomfort. Their vote was down 9%, the Lib Dems up by a whopping 20%. Labour had a similar problem in their northern strongholds. In Middlesbrough, a drop of 14% was just one of a dire set of results across the northeast. In the end, the spoiled ballot papers on social media told the story. Local issues inevitably played a part, but all politicians know it wasn't bins voters were angry about, but Brexit. Well, these election results show, if anything, the massive problem that Brexit has become for both parties. We knew that already, of course, but these overnight results, boy, have they confirmed that. The problem is, while they're showing up the pain, they're not offering any solution. And if we think these results are a problem, well, both parties know things could get a whole lot worse in the next few weeks if the European elections go ahead, as many believe that they will. Of course, the Brexit bogeyman Nigel Farage is due to pop up again. He's leading the polls with his Brexit party, and on the other side, Change UK is hoping to hoover up the angry Remain voters. Now, one way, of course, for both parties to avoid that is for Tories and Labour to come together. Later this afternoon, Both Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May went on camera to say that they were determined to try and get a deal over the line in the coming days. We are told that talks will resume between the two parties after the bank holiday weekend. But let's face it, we have been here before, haven't we, for months, and yet no agreement has been reached. And regardless really of today's dual drubbing, the underlying same issues and tensions remain. So the big question will be whether or not they are able this time, after these elections, to find a way through.
Siobhan Kennedy, thanks very much. Well, as Siobhan was saying, Labour's night wasn't quite as bad as the Conservatives, but they still lost seats pretty heavily, with particularly worrying results for them in what would normally be considered Labour strongholds in the north. Our North of England correspondent Claire Fallon is in Ellesmere Port in Cheshire, where Labour has just lost control of one more council. Claire.
Well, even though Jeremy Corbyn headed up to the north first thing this morning to go to an area where his party had won, to do what party leaders do and talk up their results, it's not exactly been this huge celebratory victory party for him in the north today. So take Cheshire West and Chester. They were counting the results here until about an hour ago at this leisure centre, and that's when we had the final confirmation that Labour has lost overall control of this council. It was fairly tight already between Labour and the Tories. They are still the biggest party, but no longer absolutely in control. The common theme, if there has been one, is the drift of support to smaller parties, but also to uber local parties focusing in on local issues in their areas. And that has seen support sliding away from Labour, even in core Labour places like Barnsley, for example, where the Labour Party say that they had their worst night for 15 years. And then, of course, there is Brexit, which frankly in the north is like some kind of impossible Rubik's Cube for the Labour Party, because the reality is many Labour areas are the areas that voted leave. The first vote since the Brexit day that wasn't, the first big test of what people think and feel, and one big theme. This was the night of the other, the not you and the not you either. What do you think is going on this evening?
I think we've got the dissatisfaction with the leadership of the council.
And there's a lot of anger out there.
Absolutely, what's been done to Curzon. This is nothing to do with Brexit, this result.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all to do with Brexit. It's all to do with the removal of services from our town of Curzon.
It added up to a bad night for Labour across much of the north. In Bolton, they are still the biggest party, but only just after losing 7 seats. Are you still going to be the leader of this council?
I have no idea.
And Brexit's not irrelevant as far as their leader's concerned.
There's so much anger out there because parts of the town have been really affected a lot more than others. And I would say that's why you've got your Falmouth and Kersleys, because people just don't believe that anybody's interested in them anymore.
Another Labour council in the Labour heartland, a red ward in red as it gets Ashton-under-Lyne, with a big-name MP to lend support and pose for selfies on the Labour campaign trail. In every single general election since before the Second World War, this area has been Labour. And it's the same in local elections since the WARP was created in 2004. It's been Labour, Labour, Labour. That was until last night. Because last night, the winner here was Green. And while losing 1 seat on a local council hardly counts as a political earthquake, that Colin switched to Green is a pretty big thing, because Colin is a lifelong Labour supporter and a committed Leaver who's just voted for a pro-Remain party.
To be honest with you, I did that just to sort the system up. I didn't want to vote for. I didn't want to vote for Labour or Conservative, so I voted for Green Party.
So, as a Leaver, you voted for a Remain party just because you didn't want to vote for the other two?
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people did the same?
Yes, I know they did.
I've been Labour for about, I'd say, I'm 35, so let's say nearly 15 years. My dad was pro-Labour as well. But then, like I say, with the area in the mess that it is at the moment, the broken glass, the rubbish on the streets and what have you. I mean, my friend were talking about it yesterday. We said, let's go and vote for Green.
Everyone wants change. Independent parties have gained a lot of seats, and so has the Green Party. So this is the way forward. People want change.
And change is what they got. Just not in the obvious two-party politics way of swinging from one big side to the other. As with the referendum itself, how the North voted wasn't just about Brexit. As with so much right now, it's more complicated than that.
Claire Fallon reporting there. Well, earlier I spoke to the Education Secretary, Damien Hinds, and Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry. I began by asking Damien Hinds whether he thought these election results were disastrous for the Conservative Party.
You know, this was a clear message from the electorate. We got it in the result. Actually, to be fair, I think we all got it as well when we were knocking on doors, talking to people directly. It's a clear message that there has been frustration, and particularly on this big issue of Brexit, we need to get on with it and get it done.
Come back to Brexit, but there was also a clear message about your leader as well, wasn't there? And the activist Stuart Davies, who heckled her, spoke for many. She's got to go, hasn't she?
Well, I think the Prime Minister has done a remarkable job and shown incredible drive and tenacity in what has been a very difficult negotiation with the European Union.
Will you compromise on the issue of the customs union, some kind of permanent, semi-permanent customs union? Then you'd have the deal. Labour would sign up to that.
Well, look, the discussions with the Labour Party are going on. I'm not in the room for those discussions, but we'll see how they progress.
Yeah, but you're in the cabinet. I'm asking you about that point on the customs union. Yeah.
I'm coming on to that. So, look, on the point of wanting to have the best possible customs arrangements with the European Union, I mean, we agree with that, and that is written into the deal that the UK has negotiated. And I think it's the reason I said I'm not in the room for those discussions is, you know, it's important to hear from the Labour Party what it is in their proposal, their kind of version of customs arrangements, like a full customs union. What is in that isn't in the negotiated deal? Because actually the deal, in many ways, gets the best of both worlds. It gets the good features of a customs union, but without the drawbacks.
Well, let me right now bring Emily Thornberry, Shadow Foreign Secretary, in to answer that point. What is it you want that you'd sign up to on the customs union?
Well, there isn't a permanent customs union in Theresa May's deal. There isn't close alignment of rules and regulations that we need to have a place in the single market.
And permanent customs union is your red line, or would you go for a semi-permanent?
No, that we need to have. We've always said. I did Prime Minister's Questions like 2.5 years ago, and I said that on our side of the House, we believe that the only way that we can have a soft border in Northern Ireland and look after jobs and the economy is to be in a customs union. We have been completely consistent about that. But that isn't all. I mean, there are a number of other issues as well.
But this is why voters are so frustrated with both main parties. Theresa May says, let's get on and deliver Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn says a deal has to be done. And then I ask you both now, what kind of deal? What does that look like? And you're both completely intransigent. So a deal won't get done, will it?
No, Kathy, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying intransigence at all. It is true that the negotiated deal is itself involves, balance and trade-off and compromise. But we're having these talks entered into in good faith and being done constructively, I think, on both sides with the Labour Party. That's a good thing to try and understand where these points of difference might be. And actually, I think on many things, I think we can have agreement.
How keen are you to get a deal with Labour so you can cancel the European elections? When you look at what happened last night, what might happen in the European elections? I mean, you're facing Armageddon then, aren't you?
Look, I'm mad keen as mustard to get a deal over the line. And I think 3 years after the referendum, people would rightly be frustrated. Probably puts it mildly.
So you would be obliterated, though, in the European elections, wouldn't you? I mean, people couldn't vote for the Brexit Party now. Even your own members are planning to vote for the Brexit Party, some of them.
Look, I don't think I'd be giving away any trade secrets to say, most people in the Conservative Party recognise that fighting the European elections, that is a tall order.
Damien Hinds, thank you very much. Let's turn now to Emily Thornberry. You heard what he said there about a second referendum. Can you be any clearer? Because there is a theory today that you've been punished for failing to be clearer on that issue of a second referendum.
Yeah, I mean, I think listening to people in the local elections, I think that it's right that people are fed up and they want us to get on with it. And they want the issue of Brexit to be resolved. And some people, some Labour voters have moved their vote to the Greens or to the Lib Dems because they think the answer to that is for us to remain. And some have moved them to UKIP because they think the answer is for us to leave with no deal.
Last night, you should have been gaining hundreds of seats. It was not the performance of a government in waiting, was it?
I think it was mixed results. I think there certainly isn't an equivocation. You can't say the Tories did badly, Labour did badly. I mean, obviously, the Tories have are losing, over 1,000 seats. And
you should be picking them up in droves, ready to go into number 10.
And if you look at, and certainly, as I say, it's mixed. So there are certain councils that we've lost control over, which is, really sad that we have. But also, we've won control of Amber Valley. There are a number of other councils and if you look at some of the key marginal seats, like South Swindon, like Plymouth Moorside, like Thurrock, if those results were translated into a general election, we'd be winning those marginal seats. So it's a mixed picture. It's a mixed picture.
The fact that you're not storming ahead is in part, at least, in large part, some people say, because of your leader. I mean, the actor and activist, Tony Robinson, who's been a supporter of Labour for 45 years, he's left, in large part, he says, because of Jeremy Corbyn.
I think it's really sad that Tony's left, and I will miss him. But I think that actually, what I learned from the elections was that two things. One was that they really want us to move on from Brexit, and they really want that sorted out. And they also want us to be talking about something else.
Nothing to do with Jeremy Corbyn at all.
And where we have been doing well, it's where we've been able to get people to focus on issues other than Brexit, the bread and butter issues, where we do have an alternative, where after 9 years of austerity, there is another way.
Did Jeremy Corbyn's leadership have anything to do with last night's results?
I mean, I've been a member of the Labour Party for
a yes or no?
A long time? No. And every time there's been an election, I've been told by people on the doorstep, if you change your leader, I don't like X, I don't like Y, get someone else and I'll vote Labour. I mean, I hear it all the time. I think that...
And you heard it all the time this time about Jeremy Corbyn?
You hear it. I mean, I've heard it all the time over the years, over the last 40 years I've heard it. And it's a very difficult job being leader of the opposition, particularly Labour leader of the opposition, particularly given the way in which the print media behaves towards the leader of the opposition when they're Labour. It is very difficult. And of course, people will pick up on that. But what's important is what politicians will do to change people's lives for the better. And when we're measured against that, we can knock the Tories out the park.
Emily Thornberry, thank you very much.
Well, the biggest winners in the election are the Liberal Democrats. And joining me now is their education spokesperson, Layla Moran, who's also tipped to take over from Vince Cable as leader when he stands down later this year. Thanks very much for coming in. There's no question it was a good night for you. What was your best tactic? Was it not being Tory or Labour?
Well, across the country, actually, one of the tactics we had was that we are clear about where we stand on Brexit. And the reason why that was important was Leave voters, know where we are. They said, and I saw this when I was knocking up, oh, yeah, we don't agree on that, but let's talk about the other stuff. And we were able to move on.
But that taps into the fact this is a protest vote, isn't it?
No, not at all, because you move on, then you talk about things like the recycling, the bins. And you have to remember, a lot of the places where we've made gains, places like the Vale of Whitehorse District Council in my area of Oxfordshire, we've held before. People have a history with the Liberal Democrats. This is not just a shallow resurgence. This is coming from somewhere people know that Liberal Democrat councillors do well by their communities. They listen to them. I think this says we are here and we're here to stay and we're back.
But as you say, you have history. You've done well in local elections before, but been unable to translate that into parliamentary power, which is essential if you really want to influence things.
And over time, that's true. But actually, you've got to remember, we always have localism at the heart of what liberalism is. It's about communities leading from the front. This is an important part of what Liberal Democrats are, and that's
But you're not
incredible.
saying this election was not about Brexit fundamentally, are you?
It was a whole host of different factors. Of course the national picture played in. Of course it did. And of course, we were coming from a low base. But I would accept that, only those factors, if it was maybe 300 or 400. As we're talking now, we're eking towards 700 new Liberal Democrat councillors. That's the best election at local level we've had in our party's history.
Your leader today, Vince Cable, urged people to get behind the Liberal Democrats in the coming Euro election, saying the message is very clear. You know, every vote for the Liberal Democrats was a vote to stop Brexit. The problem is, at the Euro elections, you'll be facing other pro-Remain parties, and that vote will just be split.
So, absolutely, we are very clear on that message. Stop Brexit. You know, we're not hiding anything. And yes, there are other parties. We have a different voting system there, though. Under first past the post, which is what we've contested these, actually, we did some deals with the Greens. So in Oxfordshire, we actually stood down for them and vice versa. It's a different, more proportional system at the Europeans. But it is true that we have shown ourselves to be a credible party with a big machine behind us. It's all very well to say this is what we stand for, but actually the campaign matters. And if you want to stop Brexit, vote Liberal Democrat.
And leaders matter. Sir Vince Cable is to stand down very soon. Your own leadership ambitions?
Today is not about that. But what I will say is that Vince Cable now leaves an extraordinary legacy for his leadership, and I think he should be incredibly proud of what we've achieved.
One you'd like to take up?
Not about me today.